Grant, thanks for being with us today.
David, good to be here.
Now, Esports Entertainment Group has accomplished a lot in 2020. I want to start with you're talking about some of the big highlights, including your NASDAQ IPO and your recent acquisitions.
Yeah, it has been a very active year. As you pointed out, we went effective on the NASDAQ in April. So that was a huge benchmark for us, gave us access to capital, put us on a more credible exchange, etc. Since that time, we've had some huge milestones we've been able to achieve. We concluded our Malta license. We concluded our acquisition of Argyle, which is the UK-based sports book with last year's 12 million in revenues, 2 additional tier 1 licenses in the UK and in Ireland. They also brought over some additional management that Dan and Stuart are now on my executive team, which gives us deeper gambling expertise. We finished the acquisition of Flip, which is a technology company which also brings revenue, but brings us unique software. And it's a technology company that was configured with programmers specifically towards building gambling sites. So they are now working on having both Vi and Argyle on our own tech stack over the next little while. And I think it's an expectation on NASDAQ that we would own our own technology, and we will with this that acquisition. Then, of course, in New Jersey, the news recently that we reached commercial terms and have a skin to conduct online gambling, and we're working with the Gaming Commission in New Jersey to finish the other regulatory hurdles. We expect to go live in New Jersey Q1 2021. And last week, you saw we are moving forward with acquiring the Esports Gaming League. They bring more revenue, over £1 million. Break-even company, 5 years expertise in esports, running tournaments with premium brands across Europe, and we're going to be bringing that platform into the U.S., looking for a launch this fall. And the last piece of news we had was getting Warwick Bartlett to join our board of directors. Warwick is globally renowned in the gambling sector. He's in the Gambling Hall of Fame. His consulting firm is who the NASDAQ reaches out to when they've got questions on gambling issues. He's been instrumental in several gaming commissions setting up their regulatory environment. So we're happy to have him on the board. These have all happened since that IPO.
They're major advancements. Talk to us about the platform itself. How does it work?
Well, the Vi platform, which currently is running a tournament right now, the Legends Series, we have 14 teams with a social media reach of over 6 million people. And the last 3 days, we've seen our highest week of activity in terms of signups and deposits and bets. So we're pretty excited with the way that's going, of course. And that allows people to bet specifically on esports. That's the ViGG platform.
What are some of the esports on the platform they're betting against or betting on?
Well, all the major events with CounterStrike, Dota, League of Legends, Rocket League, etc. The Legends Series, that particular platform, which we're exclusively the gambling partner on, that's dedicated to CSGO, CounterStrike, and it's with tier 2 teams. But all the major events are listed on the site for people to take bets on.
Can you tell the audience a little more about CounterStrike, what that is, how it works?
CounterStrike is what's called a first-person shooter game. It's 2 teams of 5 who compete against each other in various different environments. It would be, I believe, the top esport in Europe. It's certainly, from a gambling perspective, it's one of the most popular for wagering for esports. Absolutely.
What about betting on actual real sports games?
Well, this comes to us with the acquisition of Argyle and their website, Sports Nation. Last year, they were, as of December, doing just over $1 million a month in revenues. Clearly, like every other sports book, they had a bit of a setback with COVID, and they had some regulatory audits had to get through. But by this December, we've just gone through the budget. We'll be back up to those numbers and probably above. And they've been taking wagers on traditional sports for over 5 years. One thing that was unique about having that platform is that we learned that sports betting fans during COVID did bet in large numbers on esports titles. It was the titles that are very similar to the traditional sports they watch, FIFA League, NBA 2K. But that was new. That was something we learned for the first time.
So Argyle will bring about 12 million in revenue. Talk to us about your business model, how you make money.
Sure. Well, there's all three of those platforms make revenue. So in the sports book, we try to run with about a 7% margin. So we make, each transaction about a 7% on each of the sports bets. On the Vi platform, because there's pools and fixed odds, there's a couple of different ways that we make revenue there. On a pool bet, we'd make 10%, and on a fixed odds traditional wagering, we try to run the same margins, about 7%. So we make money on both those different categories. With the tournament platform, we'll take a commission off the winner's pot of 10%. So all three of those are marketed differently to different markets, but all three are revenue generating units. And on the tournament side, we'll also have the ability to generate revenue from sponsorship.
How do you compare to DraftKings?
Well, for starters, it's a very different animal. Certainly, DraftKings is the largest in the sector, but DraftKings is focused on fantasy and sportsbook in the U.S., whereas we have European licenses. We are now moving into the U.S. marketplace. We do sports and esports, as well as the tournament play. So DraftKings doesn't do anything with tournaments, and DraftKings currently is not doing anything in esports, even though their CEO felt that was going to be one of the big growth verticals they're going to be looking at in the future. So both because of the esports and sports, as well as the international licenses, those are the main differentiating factors between ourselves and DraftKings. But both of us are pursuing high growth markets for sure.
How big is the market opportunity for your company?
Well, because there's three different markets we're in, there's three different opportunities, and we're going after all three of them. In esports, it's a huge industry. Currently, it's about $13 billion in terms of the gambling, with huge upside. Certainly more room to grow because it's a newer industry from a gambling perspective. We believe that esports gambling will eventually rival sports gambling, and sports gambling is, globally speaking, a $100 billion industry. So that is, and it's still growing in double digits. And in the U.S., clearly by evidence by DraftKings, it is a huge growth opportunity in the U.S., which is why we're going with the Jersey license. Then on the tournament side, tournament and skill play side, that too is a huge growth market. I think there's a new IPO coming up for skills, and it's $3.5 billion on the IPO. So there's a lot of opportunity in all three categories for us.
Who are some of the key players on your team?
We've got a team that's very deep in experience. My background in online gambling goes back to the 90s when it all started. We have John Brackens as our CTO. He was with Activision for many years, and for 6 years he's been running gambling operations over in Malaysia and Philippines. Stuart and Dan, who's our chief legal officer and chief financial officer, they've been in the online gambling business with Argyle for the last 5 years. So they bring a lot of knowledge to our table. Magnus Lepanini comes to us from DreamHack. He was a senior manager over at with them for the past 6 years, running large events, globally recognized in the esports business. And the list goes on. Jeff Cohn had just joined our firm. He comes to us to head up our strategic planning and IR, and he's a former analyst, specifically in the esports and video game sector. And then, of course, if you go to our board, we've got a top 25 bank executive with Damien Warwick's in the Gambling Hall of Fame. Alan Alden has been involved with regulatory issues surrounding online gambling for over 25 years. Alex Lim was the Secretary General of the International Esports Federation. So both at the board level and senior management, we have a world-class team.
Excellent. What would you say, to sum up today, is the essential value proposition? And I will simply say I am an owner of the stock, but trading at a sub $100 million market cap, when we have companies in this space trading at 15 times revenue, well, I would say you're undervalued. What's the essential value proposition?
Well, I think that actually is the major value proposition for all across all market comparables. We are absolutely undervalued. We are only people, I think we've been assessed about 2.5 times, maybe 3 times revenues versus 15 across the board. That said, we are uniquely positioned in that we're going after 3 profitable industries that do overlap, whereas everybody else in the sector who has these tremendous multiples are just going on one sector. So I think there's huge upside, obviously, in the potential where if the stock just goes to market comparables, that'd be a win. But as you can see with our execution in the short period of time since the IPO, I hope that the shareholders feel comfortable and confident that we'll continue that level of execution. And through execution, the results should come in the revenues, and the share price will follow.
I agree. Grant, thanks so much for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, David.